Welcome back to pixelprojectradio. This is the final installment of our conversations around Death Stranding. Finally finished the game. I'm joined again by Nick and Will and Nick from the Friday Night Gamecast, recording on a Friday evening into the night. I'm bringing it in with the Friday Night Boys on this fine Friday night. That was a tongue twister I had to do twice. How's it going,
It's a hell
fellas?
of a tongue twister. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're doing great over here. Very on brand having us on a Friday. So very nice of you. We appreciate that as always. But it's always good being here with you, Rick.
Yeah, Rick, I'm really excited to be back and close out Death Stranding for you. I'm excited to hear your final thoughts and see where this wraps up for everybody.
Yeah, and thank you for joining. I try to give my thanks as much as possible, like a Catholic priest, to all of the fine folks that joined me on the show. It's really appreciated. Really appreciate you guys. Yes, this is the last episode for Death Stranding. I wanted to say this up front. I want to, we generally try to go beat by beat through the story and not spoil anything. I think for this last episode, I think we should abandon that and just put all the spoilers on the table up front. I think it'll make talking about this easier rather than going straight through, because this game in the final third really just sort of sits you down and tells you everything. The pacing in retrospect on this game is very bizarre, and this final part, which I confess I think is a bit of a disaster. They kind of just tell you everything. He essentially does what we do. He walks you through the story beats. But I think to talk about it holistically is probably the best move, so we're not just kind of relaying everything that they're relaying to the player. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Sure does.
Well, cool. Let's get into it. So the Ha and the Ka, that plays a huge part in the final parts of the story. So let's touch on that really briefly. The Ha and the Ka, that's a concept from ancient Egyptian thought. People in that time period thought of the soul as containing several different parts. The Ket, the Sa, the Ren, etc. You can check it out on Wikipedia. That's where I'm reading from. But the Ha and the Ka, Ha sometimes referred to as Ba, those are two parts, and in Death Stranding, what they've done is essentially relegated those terms to mean body and soul. And that plays a big role moving forward, because essentially what happens is when one's Ha and Ka get separated on the beach and in real life, that's when things like repatriation happen. That's when things like Amelie happen, the extinction entity, which we'll get into as well. And I had a thought earlier today. I'm curious to hear what you two think about this. A key theme that Kojima wanted to put into this game is the importance of togetherness and community and helping one another, essentially being connected to your fellow humans, right? And I was thinking about this in terms of repatriation, and I'm wondering if you two have any thoughts of this. Once I kind of started considering them together, it kind of took the weight out of that idea of kindness and altruism. If Sam is a repatriate, he is effectively immortal, right? And I know it's a little more complicated than that. I think he's not literally immortal. I think there's some nuance there, but effectively he is. And the thing about altruism and kindness and acts of service for others is what makes them special is not just that we are helping our fellow man. It's not just that we are doing a kindness for no gain to ourselves. It's that we are doing that in conjunction with actively losing some of our time on Earth, right? What makes those acts of kindness special, those acts of service special, is that we are helping somebody else out for no personal gain. And in fact, we are losing some of our precious time here on Earth to do something solely for other people. That's what makes acts of, self-sacrifice, kindness, however you'd like to say it, so effective. And I was thinking about this in terms of Sam being a repatriate and effectively being the only person rebuilding America in this game. The fact that he's immortal kind of takes some of the wind out of that sail. Do you know what I mean? The fact that he is effectively living several lifetimes means that he has all the time in the world. And that sacrifice of his mortal minutes isn't really an issue. And it took, I don't know, do you think I'm off base? Am I thinking about this too hard? Is this too self-serving, or am I blowing farts?
I feel like that just might be, like a take, but I don't know. It's interesting looking at it, thinking because Sam's, effectively immortal, like we mentioned, is that it's taking the wind out. It brings me back to a lot of times when people talk about somebody being, immortal, or maybe people thinking, I wish I could live forever. And I feel like very quickly, as you kind of age and you realize what that would mean, it feels a lot more like a curse than it does a blessing or a boon. So I don't know. I look at Sam, obviously, as the game does paint him as a very tragic figure because of his backstory and everything. I know we said we're putting spoilers on the table, but I imagine we'll probably talk more about his backstory when it makes a little bit more sense in it. But I definitely saw Sam, between him being the complete backbone of Bridges and being the one that's like physically connecting all of these different people together, being the person that's fighting nearly all the BTs by himself, and then fighting Higgs by himself in most cases. I put him on a lot more of maybe a martyr pedestal, and I feel like is still even kind of lined up, not quite religious. Of course, you can tie religion to damn near anything. So, someone could easily say this is like a religious type of game. Sam dies and comes back like Jesus, right? I'm sure someone has written that blog post out there in the world somewhere.
Yeah, there's a very hip Sunday school preacher that made this parallel at some point.
Guaranteed. The stranding of death. Yeah, so someone who suffers was killed for their beliefs, a martyr. I mean,
you know who else was stranded on a cross?
Jesus Christ.
So you think that he can be seen as a martyr, even though by definition a martyr gives up their own life. Sam functionally can't do that because he's continually reborn.
He gives it up multiple times. He can't lose it as in die for good, but he will always come back. However, the scars that forgive me, that stigmata remains. It's not like the explosion that happens that killed Igor, or is it Victor, one of the brothers? Just like, Sam comes back and it's like nothing happened. There's a giant crater there forever. The cities that were killed in void outs and destroyed in void outs don't come back. So the scars remain, even if Sam also does, and he carries that with him the entirety of the game.
My thing is that, like, with Sam, I'm not necessarily, yes, what Kojima was going for throughout the game is like the central theme is togetherness. Like, we as a people are stronger together, and we are like the idea of like rebuilding the, America and the UCA is the fact that like we will continue to function even in this, post-apocalyptic, timeline as a more functioning society if we can work together. And I think that it's a true statement. It's one of the reasons why I think Death Stranding is such a hopeful game. But it's interesting because, like, while, that is a core component of what Sam goes through and, like, the function that he serves in this game, I almost see his personal journey as a character being more central to the themes that are prevalent to him, like the idea like he cannot touch, like this disconnect from other human beings. And it's that course over time when he learns to trust Fragile, when he learns to kind of understand what was going on with the BB and Unger and everything that was involved with those characters in the story, and then ultimately being able to be closer, being able to be in contact with other humans. Like, I almost see that, as well as like the, obviously reconciliation that he's having with Amelie at the same time, coalescing. It's messy. It's not very clear. And I think that's another reason why, like, I see where you're going with this, Rick, where it's like some of these things, like these voices that are going on in Kojima's head are competing for attention at the same time. And it doesn't really convey a very cogent and, concise story that's easily digestible.
That's something I noticed too. I do think that Kojima had a lot of voices going on, and the result is that none of them are entirely in focus throughout this narrative. And that's where things get a little unclear, opaque, fuzzy, messy, however you want to think about it. And we see a lot of that in this final half of this game. Let's talk about some of the stuff that we see. After our second battle, which is I think where we ended last time with Clifford, this is our second dream battle, beach battle, World War II, that some folks have said Kojima just kind of put in to appease the Metal Gear Solid fans. I don't know. I had fun with these. After that, we're going to learn a lot more about Deadman and Heartman. Those are the two. And by the way, if you're fed up with Kojima naming characters this way, get ready, buckle up, because this is where we learn all about why everybody is called what they are. All the way down to Bridget Strand. Bridge it. Makes me mad. It makes me angry. So let's talk about Deadman. He's the one that we learn first. I think, do you remember in the first episode where I kind of jokingly referred to him as a Frankenstein?
Yeah, you were right.
I think I must have read something about him and just subconsciously put it into my brain and forgot about it. Because what I thought, I was like, oh, he's got the scar on his forehead, kind of like Frankenstein. It turns out that's what he is. He's not a real living being. He was created in a lab and supplemented with cadaver organs. I think he says somewhere around 70, 80, 90% of him is like salvaged parts.
Yeah.
And he tells you this. He says, the truth is, I'm Frankenstein's monster.
Artificial. Grown from pluripotent stem cells. And when that vital spark didn't manifest in all my organs, they replaced the defective ones with those of the dead. I never had a birthday. I'm a soulless meat puppet. No Ka, a dead man.
You see now why I'm obsessed with it all? That's why he's obsessed with the bridges and beach babies, beaches, all of it. Mm-hmm. That's also why in the middle of the battlefield, he started telling Sam all of his troubles, which still makes me laugh to this day. That's such a funny thing to do. The thing about this is it's an interesting idea, but they don't really do a whole lot with it, do they? It kind of begins and ends here.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those things where it's like, yeah, I think Dead Man is the closest to like what Sam had as like an actual friend, if you're not counting Fragile in the storyline. And I think like he is interesting. The voice actor is interesting. I just feel like he was a real nothing burger. Like he kind of is just there as the alternative to, hearing Die Hardman and Sam's, mic piece, telling him what to do at any given moment.
I mean, he really is, he's the guy in the chair for Sam. Like he tells them a lot of information, obviously in this scene here. And then a little bit later on, you get a lot of Sam's backstory through Deadman, just because Sam isn't going to look into the camera and say, back in the day when I had a family. So Deadman's kind of that way through to Sam's backstory for the player character. Not that it's done particularly gracefully, but it's there all the same.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say this, for his part, I did enjoy kind of the intrigue that Deadman kind of started with, like, kind of alluding to the fact that letting Sam know, hey, like maybe Die Hardman is not a person that can be trusted based off of the information that he's withheld from you. And, of course, there's that tension when he needs to take the BB and work on the BB in order to make them function in the way that they're supposed to function as quote unquote equipment. But I feel like they could have done so much. They could have gone so much further. They could have done so much more with him. And who's to say that they don't in the sequel to this game? But yeah, I was curious as to like why kind of it felt like his character arc, like there was really no resolution for what he was going through, other than the fact that he went through this crazy experience being on the beach with Sam and fighting against Unger.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's ultimately his resolution is, like he even mentions there, like, I don't have a Ka, there's no beach for me. But his, towards the end of the game, he gets the chance to actually go on a beach, which to him was utterly impossible beforehand. So that's kind of his transcendence through, and like the closing of his story overall is that he got to experience that thing he thought he never would. And I just appreciate too with Deadman how he is and his overall experience, while he does still at the beginning, of course, treat the BB, as equipment, talks about it as equipment, tries to kind of separate it as an it versus as a true, baby out of the still mother's womb. But because of how he is as his, kind of dead man, no Ka, in that post-death state versus a child who's existing outside of their mother's post-death state, I think he is the person that it makes the most sense that would help Sam and help BB survive and continue throughout this story versus, someone like Die Hardman, if he was in Deadman's shoes, would have just thrown poor BB into like an incinerator, and you never would have had the kind of back half of the story that you got.
I don't know. I think I'm closer on the fence to where Nick is at. I could see why you would say that that's his closure, Will, but I don't know. It just, outside of Deadman telling us once, and that being here, that he doesn't have a beach, and this is a personal struggle for him. It's never demonstrated in any other way. It's just, I mean, this is at least in this game, this is a total Kojima move where he just tells you stuff and you're just supposed to accept it at face value. And I don't know. I think this works better for some than it does for others. I'm not trying to tell anybody that my take is the correct one. It didn't work for me personally. I think it would have been cool to explore this more. Deadman specifically, not so much Hartman. I mean, Hartman has an interesting backstory too, but I think Deadman could have been an interesting parallel to Sam's story. But I mean, unless you count the ending where he does go onto a beach to save Sam, it does kind of begin and end here. There's not a lot more to him. But I wonder, maybe it's in the sequel,
Yeah, I think there is definitely room for it, and hopefully they explore it. And at least, I haven't seen too much of the sequels other than just like, a little bit of gameplay footage and a lot of like what was in the promotional, footage and trailers for the game and that sort of thing. But it seems like they're pivoting like to focus a lot more on Tarman, the other director that Kojima is obsessed with, George Miller. One thing I did want to ask you both in relation, and I know that we're going a little long on, Dead Man's arc, but something that I was curious on, something, Will, I wanted to ask you, is that the way that Guillermo del Toro was blocked and acted, and the way that he moved about the scenes, it seemed really forced and slapstick and extra, and this goes back to the scene that we were talking about last episode when he does the Japanese shonen putting the hand against the wall and forcing Sam into the shower, and it's super sexual and strange. Is this a Kojima thing? Is this what he does with weird characters? Because I feel Dead Man is 100% supposed to be that weird character, but it almost whenever anything important was seemingly supposed to happen, especially when they were on the beach and he was, fighting against Clifford and, trying to get back to the BB, and there was this moment of tension, but the way that he moves around the spaces just makes him seem like a cartoon character. I don't know. Did either of you get that?
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of Kojima games previously and characters, talking about some characters like Vamp, and MGS3, the younger version of Revolver Ocelot, just lots of big character movements, like you mentioned, kind of cartoony, but, very much feels like a stage play. It's like they're playing to the audience versus playing to the character that they're necessarily speaking to in the scene themselves. And that's definitely not uncommon for quite a few characters in Kojima's games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't stand out as being distracting to me. I just thought that he was, playing the role, an eccentric scientist. I don't know. It wasn't offensive to my senses.
Okay, that's fair. I'll take it as a it's just not my taste thing. We'll take it at that.
The resident Death Stranding hater.
That's me. That's me.
That's Dead Man. Let's talk about Hartman. Hartman, who I don't know if this is going to make sense to anybody, but I cannot stop seeing Hartman as a mixture of John Oliver and this water sommelier guy on TikTok named Martin.
100%.
Do you know who I'm talking about? The water sommelier guy?
I don't know about the water sommelier, but he does look like a mixture of John Oliver and that one character from Assassin's Creed 1 through 3 that was a friend of Desmond Miles. He almost looks like a literal, just a 4K version of that character. Do you know who I'm talking about, Will?
Not off the top of my head. It's not ringing a bell. I think I'm just so caught on the fact that it's an actual guy, like the director. So I'm just I just see, the guy who directed Drive in Neon Demon.
Hartman has a thing where his heart will stop. He goes into cardiac arrest every 21 minutes. He's up and awake 21 minutes, and then his heart attack occurs, and he's out for 3 minutes on the beach, on his beach, I'm fairly sure. And the thing is he's searching for his family during this time. What his family ended up getting taken in the void out that they had mentioned, that we had heard about several times over by this point. And Hartman was brought back to life when the hospital's power generator kicked in. So he was ripped from the beach. So he's spending his entire life now searching the beach for his family to be reunited. In that way, he is a dead man as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that Kojima didn't think of that, because that would have been a line in the game. But he is functionally dead as well. Not literally, but his entire waking life is spent searching for his family so he can join them, so he can die. That's kind of it. Again, very, very interesting backstory, but outside of this scene where he's telling us it, we don't get it. Like, that's beginning and end is here. What are your thoughts on Heartman?
Yeah, he's pretty much the counterpoint to Deadman. So, I mean, one of the quotes he has
Sure.
in the game is, my body may be present, but my soul is on the beach. I'm already dead.
Heartman lives but wants to die. Deadman kind of isn't alive but wants to live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One has a soul and no body. One has a body and no soul. It's like that, vice versa. So it's really interesting, and I like the fact that you get that kind of back to back in the story arc there too. So as you're playing it, you kind of put that together. Oh, look, there's the two sides of a different coin. I wanted to say yin and yang, but I feel like that gives kind of a connotation of the dark and light when it's really more of like a two sides of the same coin situation. But yeah, really tragic backstory. Family getting killed in the double void out, which he's constantly able to see from his really sick house overlooking the big heart-shaped crater. So I'm like, I don't know, it's tough. It's like you're over here, you're crying in a mansion. I'm like, damn, I get it, but the house is kind of too lit to be sad in, I guess.
This is one of the naming conventions that kind of made me groan several times over, because not only does he have a what is it, a crater like that his mansion overlooks that is in the shape of a heart. He has a genetic condition that puts his heart in the shape of a heart that he shows you by asking you,
I have pictures. Care to see Hartman's heart-shaped heart? No, you really should.
so his heart is literally in the shape of a heart, and because he's always having these heart attacks and being brought back, they call him the Heart Man. Like, several times over, this is explained. This is too much. It's too much.
This is where we, as the great little Uzi Vert, says, we're lost in the sauce at this point, where it's gone too far. I here's the thing, Rick. I was just having a conversation with Will earlier when we were prepping for the show, talking about how, like, for more gameplay centric reasons, I really enjoyed this section of the game, and I really, as much as I moan and complain about some of the other characters in Kojima's world building and his writing and his character choices, I will say Hartman was it leaned more on the side of being a little bit least offensive, and I think part of that is because his story is truly tragic, and it's like they are doing the show not tell thing by explaining his condition, having him die in front of Sam and then get brought back in the same time, and it's also the through line of the distrust of Die Hardman continues when Hartman reveals to you that there are things that he needs to share when they're not being monitored, and there are ways that he can go about secretly sharing certain details about, like, the past with Sam, on top of the fact that diegetically through the game you're also working with other anthropologists, paleontologists if I'm not mistaken, where you're finding evidence that if not the BTs, but at least the tar, and I guess maybe the strands have existed since the prehistoric era, like far before humanity became online.
Yeah, you get a lot of the lore in this section, and like I know this is what some listeners want, but this isn't really like a lore based podcast. It's not something we're going to go into.
Sure.
There's a lot of it in the game, though, that you can explore at your leisure. And it's interesting. That, by the way, that bit of information that Hartman wants to discuss with you, part of that is we're now considering that it's possible Bridget and Amelie were both extinction entities. We're toying with that now. And that raises questions. Why was the president of America an extinction entity? It seems a little bit counterproductive for the leader of a country. Another angle of Hartman that's really tragic too, that I really, really wish they would have done more with is, he talks about this persistent cycle of 21 minutes awake, 3 minutes out after, having his heart attacks, and then he gets brought back, rinse and repeat ad infinitum. He talks about how that's off-putting to some people, and when he and Sam first meet, he goes to, he does the thing where he goes to give Sam a handshake. Sam recoils because Sam has that condition. He's got that phobia. Hartman reads it as him being repulsed by him because he keeps dying and being brought back to life, like some kind of a freak of nature. and it stings him. You can see it, and he says something. I don't remember exactly what he says. Something like, this does shock people. I can understand.
Glad you could make it, Sam. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to alarm you, but I am what I am.
And it's twinged with sadness every time. And I really wish they would have done more with that. That is such an interesting bent to his character. And it's tragic, like you both said.
So I wonder too, it could just be a thing where, I mean, obviously the game is as long as you want to make it based on delivering packages, but I'm trying to think with like Dead Man and Heartman for them to maybe fully explore them more and do more side missions and more running around. It would bloat the back half of the game more than it kind of already is based on, at the very end when you get the classic Kojima 1.5 to 2 hour long cutscene wrapping everything up. So maybe that's something that, contrary to what we've kind of known about Kojima when it comes to this game, could have gotten left on the cutting room floor. But there's also a lot of parts of me that are looking at, Dead Man, Heartman, even Die Hard Man later on, some of these side characters where there are some gaps and some question marks on their backstories and what they feel and what they think. And I mean, ultimately, I just kind of have to be okay with that just because you're not going to know everything. And I'm sure at this point he knew there was going to be a 2. So like we already mentioned, I'm sure some gaps are filled in there when you go to, Australia in the future.
It must be nice to know that you're going to get a sequel to your, million unit selling game.
Right. And it's fine. I don't expect games or any stories to explain everything. I think, especially in retrospect, why I wish that would have happened is I think, having seen the rest of the game, I think Kojima is better at the character moments than which is strange to say based on what I've said about his writing so far. I think he's better at that than he is at creating this really deep and intricate world. Like, the lore is very cool, but it gets immediately extremely messy when Kojima tries to tell that story. But the character moments, especially that we get with Cliff and Die Hardman throughout the rest of this game, are bordering on stellar. They're extremely good.
Yeah. And I would attribute this to, obviously, Will has a really, really, strong affinity for the performances in this game. And I will say I completely agree with on that front. I think this, for the rest of this game from this point forward, is going to be one of the highlights of Kojima's ability. And I think one of his skills is directing people on set, directing people on camera. Is he a writer? Is he not? That's up for other people that are smarter than me to decide. But what I will say is that I did really, really enjoy the way that, something that you even mentioned at the beginning of the show, Rick, about his flair for cinematography, his flair for very interesting angles. And I think that is really showcased here in these next few episodes.
Pick up the baby and cry.
You pick up the baby and cry because of the strand in the sky.
When Norman Reedus tells that story, the way that he says that and looks at the camera cracks me up every time.
Every time. Every time.
Yeah, Hartman's an interesting feller. This whole area, we're still reconnecting the Chiral network. It should be said, too, I think you said this, Nick, this is maybe my favorite area to play in the game. It's very mountainous. There's a nice mix of snow and lack of snow. It's a lot of fun. I really had fun traversing this. It's challenging, too.
Yeah, it's really challenging, and there's a moment, and I don't know if we had mentioned this earlier or if we're already past it, but there's a moment essentially for story reasons that the BB gets taken from Sam by Dead Man in order to get diagnostics performed on it so it can continue functioning as a BB. And at this point, you don't have the warning system that you've had up through the game this far in order to detect other BTs that are in the area. And so Sam is kind of forced to deal with them when they emerge, or forced to kind of like look out for those subtle signs. And I think and that's one of the things that I think is so interesting about this game, is that when they're paring back some of those systems, when they strip some of your tools away from you and force you as the player to like engage in more leaning towards survival horror combat with the BTs, this game really is masterful. And I love that course of gameplay, figuring out your loadout, figuring out what you can carry on your back. And then of course, you know, in this mountainous terrain, one of the reasons why I love it too is because I started really using zip lines super heavily. And so picking out different moments and strategically setting up zip lines at the like corner of mountain ranges. I did this like multiple times. I had like 20 zip lines set up through this area, and and I completed all the side missions as a result of it, because I was able to just zoom from location to location and get those missions completed.
Damn, son. I don't think I used the zip lines even once.
Oh man,
no, you missed
got
out.
to, Rick. Yeah, you're missing out, but that's still okay.
Speaking of loadouts and connecting, we do end up connecting the whole chiral network. When we get as far west as we can go, we have to cross this sea of tar. And this is a really cool moment, admittedly, even though they do kind of do everything short of telling you what to do on how to solve it. To cross it and to get to Amelie, you have to purposefully summon a BT so it does the thing where it like brings up all of the buildings out of the tar. Yeah. And that's how you get. That's a very, very, very cool moment.
It was really cool.
This leading into Chapter 9, Episode 9 is all about Higgs. We're about to do a big boss fight with him. Amelie has a few visits with us in the nighttime, basically confirming all of our suspicions. She tells us straight up that she is an extinction entity, that this is all inevitable, that she does seem to feel compassion towards Sam, and she seems remorseful, but she's like, you know, this will happen. This is what I am. You can't change it. And it leads to this big boss fight with Higgs summoning a gigantic BT that sort of absorbs him and Amelie. By the way, am I batty? Am I crazy for thinking that Higgs unmasked looks a lot like the Nightman from It's Always Sunny?
It's definitely the eyeshadow. The eyeshadow really does it.
like it's all I can see. It's all I can think of when I look at him. He looks totally like it.
No joke. If they got Troy Baker to sing that song in this game, I would have. Yeah. This would be my game of the generation. This would be like my personal goat. This would be the best.
I mean, he's referenced other movies before. It's not out of the ballpark. I wonder if he likes It's Always Sunny.
I bet he does.
Yeah, who doesn't like It's Always Sunny?
Does he like TV? Wait, do you say you don't like it?
No, I say who doesn't like It's Always Sunny? Like that's just a super. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've met a good person that hasn't met it, doesn't like it, I should say.
He loves film so much that he just might not have watched it.
That's true. This boss fight, I don't know. It's kind of a theme with all the boss fights in this game. This one specifically with the BT, not the upcoming ones. This one is super easy.
Yeah, it's bad.
You
just kind of it's not good.
Run
it's
and
not
just
that it's bad. It's just easy. It can be easy. It's not meant to be like a hurdle.
It's a cool spectacle. It looks very cool, but I mean, you kind of just run to one end, shoot all of your ammo, run to the other, pick up ammo, and rinse and repeat. It will fire Metroid brain BTs at you, but they don't really do anything. A lot of the time, they just hit the ground and stop,
splat,
and that's it.
Yeah, I was really kitted out for this boss fight. I had like a ton of like ammo and blood bullets and of course blood bags kind of stored up for this fight because I felt like something was coming. And I also generated the classic Resident Evil grenade launcher and kind of quickly dealt with it this way. So maybe that's why it was boring for me.
This is also where they start almost over communicating the sort of idea that this is inevitable. You can speed this up or slow this down, but you cannot stop what was started, is what Higgs told you. This extinction event, this sixth one, is going to happen. All we're doing is delaying it by putting up a fight. That's sort of what Higgs and Amelie are telling you over and over again. And that kind of comes into play with what's coming up. Sam is going to go to Amelie's beach at this time. Higgs has taken Amelie. Fragile can't jump there herself, but she jumps you there. And Higgs will explain his reasoning. It basically boils down to what we just said. Everyone's going to die. Just do it now.
Even if you beat me, you can't save her. So this is a done deal.
And this, man, I really don't know how I feel. Well, yeah, I do know how I feel. I don't like this section. It's two boss fights with Higgs in a row. It does. There's a part of me that thinks Kojima just put this in here, to appease the action fans of Metal Gear, because even today you can find tons of reviews on this that's just like, nothing happens, it's just walking. Where's the action? But this is a boss fight in 2 phases. The first boss fight is fine. It's, you're running after Higgs. Higgs will shoot at you. He's throwing bombs at you. You just have your fists. And he's also teleporting, jumping. You run after him and just punch him several times. That's the first phase. The second phase transitions into a PvP fighting game, except it's a really bad fighting game. This did not need to be here at all. This is actively, I think, the worst part of the game. I think.
So you want to know something crazy is that I did not realize that you could parry with the strand rope this entire game until you are forced to do it in this boss fight. And that drove me fucking bonkers to no end, because I never really had to deal with mules like up close and personal. And if I did, I really just like knocked them out by just hitting punch over and over again with whatever I was holding, or I would shoot them once I got the non-lethal guns. Like, sure. I was fine for the most part, but this really was, I'm in line with you, Rick, because this was so frustrating. Like, they don't really do a great job of being like, hey, unless you die, and then they give you the tip, hey, don't forget to use your rope. You can parry with the rope.
Do you have to parry?
I was under the impression that you did. That's how I was doing, because he was teleporting away from you as soon as you get close, and so you have to like wait for him to teleport to you to like punch you, and then you parry so you can get a few hits in. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe you guys did it differently. Maybe you didn't have to do it that way, but I kept dying. So
I generally waited till he started shooting, and then would zigzag towards him. And once he was reloading, that's when I would. Actually, what I really like to do was jump and do a flying super kick.
Yeah, the drop kick or the knee. Yeah.
Nice.
Gotta add some drama to it,
Yeah, I did not do either of those things. I kind of was just like, I was waiting for him to come to me, I guess, just because like he kept teleporting away so quickly whenever I would get nearby. So I was like, okay, so we just gotta wait for him to come in.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things that I was kind of used to just because I hadn't played it personally, but I'd known, MGS 4, ending with kind of like that 1v1 personal old man fight. So I was like, oh, nice. I get the chance to experience this in a new game. So
this is a rinse and repeat of something he did in 4?
A little bit. It's not, quite exactly the same, but the fact that you have like a big old giant battle that culminates in a one-on-one kind of personal fist fight mirrors that game from MGS4.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a nod to his earlier work, I can understand that. I don't know. The first part of this fight's fine. It's really the fighting game portion that stinks, partly because it plays terribly. I don't know, man. There's so much dissonance in this game with Kojima's messaging, his intended messaging, and at the very end, very explicit messaging that violence isn't the answer. But at the same time, he goes out of his way to put violence in here. You don't want to shoot anybody because that'll cause a void out. Violence isn't the answer. So instead, we're just going to play pretend that all of these firearms and ammunition are, non-lethal. So go nuts.
Oh, it's Neil Druckmann all over again. You know what I mean?
Violence isn't the answer, but let's beat the shit out of Higgs. Like to the point where you're punching him in slow motion. And admittedly, this made me laugh. Like that's my takeaway of this too. I'm sorry, I'm getting entirely too sidetracked. I'm not on my game today. This is like, I don't think this is the deep masterpiece that people think it is. I think this is just a fun summer blockbuster action. That's what this is. And like, sometimes Kojima forgets that, but when he doesn't, like in this fight, and you're getting close-ups of Sam punching Higgs in the face and a slow-mo of like his tooth shooting out of his mouth, that's when this game is the most fun to me, and the Zen aspects of portering. I love that too. Mm-hmm. But like when this game is not trying to be overly pretentious and scholarly and trying to tell this deep story, when it's just being a fun movie, I think that's where it shines, man. And that's, what's happening here. I don't know. I still just wish they would have cut the PvP thing, but Well,
I'm with you.
If it's a nod to his previous work, then I get it.
Yeah. Like my thing is that exactly what you're saying about the slapstick, like the kind of forceful, slow-mo punching humor. Like there are moments in this game where stuff like that has happened before, like, in cool, intense shootout moments. Like Kojima knows how to kind of bring the hype. And I just wish that he stayed in that lane and just gave us so much more of that. Like I wish he gave us Asura's Wrath but Death Stranding, and didn't really get too concerned about trying to be kind of academic or trying to be philosophical with where he's going for. But just because it's like I don't know if that's the lane that he really can live in the games that he's going with. But something that I did want to ask you is in regards to what is going on with the character dynamics between Higgs and Amelie earlier on. My assumption is that Higgs had been working for Amelie this whole time. Is that right?
I don't know, Will, do you want to feel this one?
Working for isn't quite...
Or being manipulated by...
I mean, it's like I
think that's closer to the truth.
Yeah, because you get that single shot where Sam finally comes, the second phase, before the final boss fight with Higgs, and you see this moment. It's like a very quick, kind of more subtle scene, which I kind of appreciated, where he's like kneeling on the ground at the feet of Amelie, and she's kind of like looking at him, and they're having a brief exchange. I can't recall exactly what, but it gave me the distinct impression that he was doing her bidding somehow, and that it wasn't a situation where she was at she was subject to his whims as this kind of like mad villain that he's kind of portrayed as in this game, more so that he's the one that's actually kind of getting emotionally or psychologically manipulated by her into doing essentially what she needs to do as an extinction entity. So I thought that was an interesting wrinkle to the story, but alas, like you were saying, Rick, it kind of ends with messiness.
Yeah, I was like, it's ultimately more of Amelie manipulating what's already kind of in Higgs' heart, in his mind. He's kind of tipping towards that edge of chaos already. And she's like, oh, this guy would be an easy person to give hella dooms to, and then have him just go out there and create a bunch of craziness. Okay, now that this person's out here creating craziness and I have a villain, Sam, come be my Mario and save me from this Bowser.
Jeez,
which, he comes and does, and then we get the best line in the entire game that everybody loves and no one has any issues with at all.
Yeah, pin in that. I think Fragile does say that to Sam at the end, like when they were working together, she was using her, I think, jumping powers to help them do deliveries and connect people. Amelie comes in and shows that she can do that even better and seduces Higgs and basically makes him go mad with power at that point. Like she turns him into her lackey to bring about the end. And it was largely due to that seduction of power, I think. Let's talk about what you just said, Will. And to be fair, this is not the only video game line here. Like the Dead Man opens by making a big statement of "Game over, man," and during the Higgs fight, he prefaces by saying, "This is just a good old-fashioned boss fight. One last game over." So Kojima does this like throughout a ton of this, but you get a little dialogue with Amelie here. By the way, after a really stupid line from Fragile between her and Higgs when, Troy Baker does this whole monologue and calls her damaged goods. So she punches him and goes, "You're damaged goods." Fucking dumb. But Amelie could get here. That's the big reveal here. Amelie wasn't actually stuck here. She was able to get out to visit Sam. Her being stuck here was a whole lie made up by Die Hardman to manipulate Sam. And the way that they get out of here, Amelie suggests, is to just run hand in hand.
We run together.
Run?
Yeah. Like Mario and Princess Peach.
And they zoom in on her face as she's saying this. I don't know why they have the confidence to do this. It's so strange because it's really, really bad. It's really ham-fisted, clumsy.
Yep.
But they do it with such confidence that I don't know. Like, it's almost like they're so confident about it. Like they're making fun of themselves, so you can't make fun of them because they did it first. I don't know, dude. And then the running down the beach, like I've heard this called like a what do you call it? A medical commercial. You know, like they're running down the beach, and you can just imagine a voiceover like, "Ask your doctor if Lamictal is right for you." I don't know, dude. This is absurd.
They had to know they were going to get a big groan out of that one, which is I'm very sure, which is why they zoomed in on the face, like they just leaned into it. This has had to be one of those lines that Kojima was like, it has to be in, and I guarantee somebody said, "Please, can we not?"
Yes,
he's like, "Nah."
Yeah, one of the editors was like, "You got to take this out," and he's like, "No, this is a load bearing line."
He said, "This is the linchpin of the game. If this isn't in, the game doesn't come out."
Yeah, it's nutty. It's nutty. Everybody shits on this line online. So I don't know that we need to devote a ton of time to it. It's
okay.
just it's the crazy thing to me is the confidence that they have when delivering shit like this.
I think I'm like fairly confident when I say that the Princess Peach and Mario line is what specifically makes this game one of the all-timers for Will. Like at least top 10 just for him.
top 5, and it's not 5. Like it's up there.
So on this beach, Amelie, Bridget, maybe Die Hardman, who is here now and tries to shoot Bridget, and Cliff Unger, who comes out of the tar. They all have a little powwow, and it's clear they know each other, and it's clear that there is not good terms. Like Unger looks like he's going to shoot Hardman at one point. And the next few chapters, I mean, literally the next episode is entirely just Dead Man telling you about Die Hardman. But moving forward into this next Cliff Unger battle is setting up some reveals about their backstories in the coming episode. The Cliff Unger battle, this one here that I think is reminiscent of Vietnam. Is that right?
I'm pretty confident it was. Pretty sure that one is.
I think so. This was really tough for me. I died like 4 times.
Yeah, this is the hardest one of the 3 for sure.
It's not it's not easy, but I really like the construction. I wish like this was 90% of the game, honestly. I like the level layout, obviously the sequential nature, using the BB to kind of detect where Unger was going to be. Like I really you know, they weren't the best. They weren't like, you know, the most emergent, third person shooting gameplay that I've ever experienced. But I did have a really good time playing these like action sequences.
You got to get you on Metal Gear Solid soon then. So if you like these sequences so much.
I was going to say what Nick wishes this was Metal Gear Solid. That's what this comes down to. It's a tough battle, but it's a lot of fun. This ending scene though, there's a tender moment between Sam and Cliff where it looks like Sam might give the BB over for a minute. They both whistle the See the Sunset melody to the baby. Baby gets happy. It's clear that baby is not pleased, comforted by Cliff's presence. And actually, Will, I'm wondering if you could clear this up for me. I'm a touch confused at this. Knowing what we know about Cliff, I'm not crazy about this scene. I don't dislike it, but I'm not wild about it. But he asks Sam, who he is. Sam says, "Are you the father?" And Cliff, at this point, it's clear Cliff is kind of resigned that he quote unquote lost here. He's getting some sort of closure, but he says, "They told me your name was Sam Porter. You're Sam Bridges. You're the bridge to my future, or you're the bridge to all of our futures." Who told him that he was Sam Porter? Because we said up top, spoilers are all on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Cliff is Sam's father, and the BB flashbacks that we were experiencing were from baby Sam's point of view.
Yeah.
That's the big reveal that I think Sam realizes here. I'm pretty sure Sam realizes it here, but we get explicitly told that later. But, there is a flashback where Sam and Cliff talk before Cliff dies. I didn't take that to be literal. So, like, who said that he was Sam Porter? That I don't understand. Was he already named as a baby, even though Cliff kept calling him BB to his face and to Hardman?
It was named by Kojima because he moves things.
Well, true, but in universe, like who told Cliff that he was Sam Porter? Why does he say this line? I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, which is not quite coming to me. There's a couple of guesses I have. Is that because of Cliff's current status. It was like as he starts to learn things, it could just be more of those like you absorb information through the chiral matter, which since everyone at this point has been kind of completely covered in touching the chiral matters, like that could be a part of it. So that's like my only kind of thought there, because it's not like there was a scene where somebody was like, that's your son. Or it could just be the classic, as a parent, you kind of know. It's like, you've seen that a million times in movies, TV show, other entertainment. Someone you think may or may not be a part of someone's life, and they look into their eyes
Sure.
and they're like, I recognize my son.
Well, he's gotta know that Sam is the baby. The way he says, "You're not Sam Porter, you're Sam Bridges."
Yeah, so that was my thought when I like first played through it and trying to remember through from this one. I just kind of piggybacked off that from 2019, where I was like, oh, it's like you look into your child's eyes and you kind of know. It's what we've seen that with time travel movies, where I'm gonna go back in time and see my dad when he was younger, and then like they look into each other's eyes and you're like, I feel like I recognize you. That's kind of what I picked up from there.
I didn't consider your first point too. They could have just told Cliff this in present day, while Cliff is sort of in the ether, not having moved on from his beach, kind of stuck in the seam because of this horrifically tragic backstory that gets unfolded over the next few hours. You're probably right, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he had access to information that, non-normal personnel would have, but then also it's like, he's on a beach. Especially because there's so much exposition, there's so much like lore at this point in the game. I'm fully checked out of like questioning why people know what or how they know it, to be frank with you. I understand that it does matter. And it is curious, and there are still questions that I personally have about like how characters relate or how they work to each other. But yeah, it's still one of those things that I just kind of accepted. Oh, he knew. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I kind of got to the point where I stopped questioning too. The reason that this scene in particular jumped to my mind though is after, you learn all about Cliff's backstory basically at the end of the game. And the first thing I did after seeing all of that was think back to this scene, because before I knew that, I hated the way that this resolved. I knew that there had to be more. And after you learn that Sam is Cliff's son, I thought back to here. And, I don't know. I'm still not even sold on whether or not I like this, even with all of that information. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just really perplexed as to why he says this.
Oh, really? The like the kind of Cliff coming to recognize Sam as his son thing didn't really land for you?
Well, I don't know. I didn't dislike it. I just don't know if I like it. I really don't know how I feel about it. I guess I was hoping for something a little more dramatic based on how horrifically awful the end of Cliff's life was. And, so much so that he is literally living in a purgatory that is more akin to hell, just nonstop death and destruction, fighting to get the BB back. And here's the BB as a human being. And all he really says is, you're Sam Bridges. You're the bridge to my future. You're the bridge to our futures. And that's it. I don't know. I'm not convinced it would be better if it was a more dramatic, heart-tugging scene, but maybe. You moving forward here, you learn a little bit more about Amelie's background too. Amelie and Bridget. Hardman left a little hologram as insurance, as he says, and he basically gives you the background of Bridget and Amelie. This is where the wheels really start turning and where the game starts just explaining everything to you. Mm-hmm. Some of this you don't learn until a little bit later, but let's just talk about all of it now. What this is Amelie doesn't exist as a human being like we thought. It's not the reason that nobody's ever seen her. And we get people saying this every now and then throughout the game. Folks from the expedition that they're like, I would love to meet her. I've never actually seen her. Hardman says the same thing. Like, have you ever actually seen her? Really? Think back. Have you? And Sam's like, well, yeah, lots of times. And then he's like, no, you haven't. Amelie was born on, or was she born on the beach, or was she born? I think she was born on the beach, right?
Amelie was born on the beach, yeah. After Bridget and had the split. That's when she was born on the beach.
She was born on the beach and spent so much time there that her ha and her ka, her body and soul, sort of split. One staying on the beach, never aging, one staying in real life and growing old. So the cover story became then that Bridget, the aging body made up a counter story that Amelie was her daughter and was very sick. Couldn't be, because Bridget had ovarian cancer or uterine cancer, I think they say. So she couldn't have children. They are the same person is basically what it gets down to.
Yeah, because ultimately, Bridget existed first, and that's when she went through everything, becoming vice president, all that jazz. But when she was younger, she realized that she was that EE, and she rejected it, and rejected it for so long that eventually her Ha and Ka split into, Amelie being born on the beach and being on the beach forever. And then that's after she started getting that uterine cancer. She saw that as kind of a punishment for not fulfilling her cosmic duty to end the world.
Right, yeah. The chiral network, too, this is something we learn a little bit later. The chiral network was all Bridget's idea. Basically, and Will, you're going to have to correct me, I think I might be misunderstanding this. Basically, her idea with the chiral network was a search for all of human knowledge to figure out why EEs come to be and potentially how to stop it. Because that's one thing throughout here is she keeps saying that this is inevitable, this will happen, but she's not overjoyed about it. She's not like Higgs looking to destroy it all, tear it all down because it's going to happen anyway, might as well be now. She genuinely seems regretful. So my understanding was she started the Bridge Baby projects and the chiral network as a means to dig up all of Earth's history, all of Earth and Time's knowledge, to figure out why EEs come into existence and how to stop them. Is that about right?
I thought Bridget maybe had that thought, and I'm trying to think even from her end if how to stop it was maybe the right way, as opposed to maybe how to kind of live with it, literally live since she was dying. But I picked up, at least I'm trying to recall, I feel like Amelie, was helping her to a degree, but at some point she just got to that section where she realized this is going to happen no matter what, and I'm not happy about it, but I kind of have to get those gears spinning, which is why she initially started working with Higgs. But then after seeing everything that goes on, you get more towards the end of the story where it's like she's still conflicted again. There's never quite a, yes, this is the right thing to do, especially when you're talking about, the potential end of humanity as we know it. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I really don't quite remember.
But she's definitely, Amelie herself is, definitely like you have in the notes here, she's behind all. She's like that puppet master that was kind of working everybody from the beach, including Sam, just making sure that he could get to where he needs to be in order to have her plans kind of come to fruition. But I just feel like as he gets there, it's almost like you have something that's so solid and so real that you're about to grab it, and then you're just almost scared to touch it. You're like, is this actually going to happen? Is this going to come true? And she's kind of conflicted all the way up to the end.
Mm-hmm. Hardman, by the way, went to the beach to end it all. He was going to stop Bridget / Amelie. He took hermetic rounds and a gun and everything. Pin in that. I want to save talking about Hardman and Cliff's backstory here for a little bit.
It's really good.
You get brought back from that beach, and essentially you and everybody, Deadman, Fragile, Mama / Lochna / Malingan, everybody's there, and you have a powwow basically saying you need to stop Amelie. You need to go to the beach. You either stop her or you kill her. There's really no other way. Sam has a moment here. Sam throughout this entire game has virtually zero character growth, but he has this whole speech about how this is to build a better life and a better future, and nothing lasts forever, but we got to keep going for as long as we can, right? I might put some of that speech in here.
But with the shape the world's in, it'll only be delaying the inevitable. Still, if it buys us time to try and build something better, a new lease on life, at least for a little bit, well, I can think of one woman who made the most of a chance like that. Nothing lasts forever, not even the world. But we gotta keep it going as long as we can, right? Patch the holes, change the parts, all that. So we can say we had a good run, that we lived.
Thought you didn't like having to handle things with care.
'Cause it was hard enough keeping my own shit together. Back when we met at the cave, the only thing I cared about was making it to the next sunrise. Sure as hell didn't care about America or the future. I was living a lie, hung up on past regrets. I was broken. But somewhere along the way, I started changing. I started meeting people that made me think that maybe it wasn't all bad. People that put their faith in tomorrow, and in me. That kept the lights on and waited for hope to arrive. So I gotta deliver, for their sake.
It feels so out of place to me. This feels like a South Park thing. Like at the end, I don't know if they still do this in the current seasons, but back in the day, South Park used to do a thing where Kyle would be a mouthpiece for a moral lesson at the end, and it would always start with,
"You see, I learned something today."
And then he would deliver the moral thing. There would be a little ironic subversion of it, a little joke, and the episode would end. That's kind of what's happening here. I don't know. And this is, I wrote a whole thing here about how this is like a Saturday afternoon blockbuster. But this is just such a weird thing to put in here, especially coming from Sam, who up until this point was barely even a character at all.
That's such an interesting way, though. I don't know, when you had that line, it was like he had virtually zero growth. I thought the whole point, especially showing from the beginning when, he couldn't touch people, and even talking to his, quote unquote mom, Bridget, where he was not just even uncomfortable touching her, but completely against the idea of bringing America together again. And through, this 40 potentially plus hour long experience, he meets dozens and dozens of new people, fights his way through BT infested lands just to do this thing that he initially didn't want to do in the first place, but coming across these different friends, Heartman, Die Hard Man, all these people that he kind of meets along the way, and that ultimately, help him out towards the end there too. I feel like his character growth was definitely there. He still stays a mostly kind of gruff, not talking a lot character, but that's just kind of who he is. But as far as his actions, I feel like his actions prove that he had growth, because the Sam from hour one would not have been doing what we see right now with the Sam, going to potentially kill Amelie, the only person that he cared about back in the day.
Well, part of the problem is that I don't think they gave Norman Reedus enough to work with, to be frank, and they continue to play it stoic. And this is what I understand they continue to do in the second game as well. Like, he, for all intents and purposes, could potentially even be a silent protagonist if you really wanted him to be. I think that like some of these character notes are interesting. He does add interesting flavor. I think the highlights of his performance is something that I have said before, is specifically his work with Lea Seydoux. Whenever those two characters, Fragile and Sam, are both on the screen, I think that's really where it shines through. And that's specifically like what's going on, and she's in the background, and there's a particularly interesting thing going on with her and her vengeance that she's taking against Higgs up until this point. But I think like I see where you're coming from, Rick, because it's like, the character growth that Sam has is siloed, but it's not intrinsic to himself. Like it's siloed to the characters that is surrounding him. It's almost like affected in a way, I think. But at the same time, it's just like, at the end of it all, it's a result of poor planning and not really strong character mapping, that they didn't give him enough to like give him these pinnacles in Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 to show, okay, this is where Sam is going through. We didn't even like, this is something that happens all the time in games. We didn't even get a moment where Sam is like truly doubting himself, or like really facing like some serious adversity, like other than getting the BB stripped away from him at one point in the game. There's no real low point for Sam in my opinion, for him to come up to this moment and have this like epiphany, have this realization, and deliver this monologue of finally being tired of the violence, being tired of the world that we're living in. I am conflicted. I do still think that the end of this game is quite beautiful, even if it is messy and doesn't make a damn lick of sense. But I will say that like it's complicated, and I think this is another perfect example, is that you have to meet Kojima where he is.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to where you are on this, Nick. Sam is almost functionally a silent protagonist, and all of the story and growth of characters are around him, not within him. And I think that's the thing. I think we just don't know Sam enough. There's not enough about Sam that is given to us for there to be meaningful growth. We don't. you know, like, and even the stuff that's here kind of gets walked back on. Like here, Sam has a line during that speech that is...
Back when we met at the cave, the only thing I cared about was making it to the next sunrise. Sure as hell didn't care about America or the future.
But, and then he says, you know, somewhere along the way I started changing, started meeting people that made me think that maybe it wasn't all so bad. But then after this, you know, after Hardman takes the role of president, Sam goes to leave and he's like, you know, I don't have anyone. Everything I touch dies or goes to shit or whatever he says. He just goes back to the same old Sam. Like, it's not, it feels like this was just inserted to show the appearance of growth when no growth could occur because we don't know Sam. You know, he's a mouthpiece for the player character, not even a mouthpiece, like a cipher, like a silent protagonist, which is why I don't like silent protagonists. This same problem happens with them. Chrono Trigger is a fantastic example. It feels sort of like that. Great company to be in with Chrono Trigger, but you know, I don't know, man. I don't think you're wrong, Will. I don't know. I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, with that ending in particular that you brought up, I mean, he finishes everything that he effectively needs to do with bridges. It's not like they need further connecting anything past there. He's did what he had to do with Amelie, which once again was one of the only people in his lives that he actually had any kind of like major feelings for outside of his tragic backstory for himself. That was now not there with him. And then ultimately he, you know, ends up with the BB, which is kind of his rope, right? It keeps him going on. So I don't know, you say like he walks it back, but it's more of like he's talking to Hardman specifically because of all that crap that went down. He's like, you know, there's nothing here in this group right now for me. Let me go on and continue to try to live with young BB.
Sure, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, for where we're at here, I think I you know, I'm a little scared of, you know, kind of falling down the same path of like repeating myself. I think something that one thing that we didn't mention, if we are going to go back and we talk about like the duality of like what's going on with Bridget Strand / Amelie, is that I will say in retrospect, as we're thinking about it and as I'm thinking about this game, that was set up pretty well. And I think that they used Malingan / Mama / whatever, however many names they're using for those characters. That was foreshadowed really well, I thought, and like kind of the setting up the audience to understand that there is a difference between the Ha and the Ka, and the soul and the body are these, you know, they are these separated ideas that are split apart by the beaches, and split apart by, you know, the chiral matter that is in this world, and how that has affected Amelie, I think is pretty interesting. But I will say that I think it at this point in the game, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I was watching like the ending in this game too. It's like, it is like an hour and a half long cutscene. I want to feel like it probably is shorter, but it felt like that because it was probably 4:00 in the morning when I was playing, Rick, because I was trying to play it to get ready for our first recording. Funny enough. Geez. But yeah, I was playing and I'm sure I was tired and stuff like that. So I did eventually go back and I rewatched the cutscenes, kind of the ending, to kind of like sit there and sit with it and digest it. I just think that it is in one of those things where you kind of have to look at it and take it for what it is and kind of just absorb it for what you think is personal to you. I do think like the beach at the end, I know that you're just recently covering The Last of Us Part 2. I thought that the ending with Sam and Higgs, you know, at the end with the final boss fight, reminded me a lot of what was going on with Ellie and Abby closer towards the end of part 2. No spoilies, no future spoilers for the show. I know this is that's not coming out until this episode is released, but yeah. So there's multiple things that are like kind of competing for attention at this point in time, but yeah, I feel okay here.
So they do send you to Amelie's beach. Fragile sends you off. This is where Amelie will fill you in on a lot of the backstory that we kind of touched on. Amelie and Bridget are the same person. She doesn't exist in our world. Amelie doesn't because she's been on the beach for so long. Amelie's beach is sort of like the connection to every beach. Hartman very appropriately likens it to a heart, where her beach is the main pumping mechanism. Everybody else's beaches in the world are the sort of valves that deliver the blood to the rest of the body. So Amelie is at the center of everything, being an EE. The sixth extinction will happen. Delaying it is inevitable, and Amelie gives you a choice. You can stay here with her and just watch it come together, or she gives you a gun and tells you to stop her. Those are the only two options at this point. You can wait and do nothing and let the extinction happen, which is what I did, because I knew it would give me, a game over and try again kind of deal. It just fades to white. You can also try to shoot her, which I also tried because I
tried
knew
to do that too.
I started blasting. Bang!
Wow.
We're gamers. We have to exhaust all the options.
Exactly.
I mean, if you try, it just doesn't work. It's like it doesn't even hit her. I kind of already said this earlier. This is where I wrote a note about teaching you nonviolence, but that doesn't jive with a lot of the game. I'm not going to repeat myself too much, but what you do is you run up to her, unequip the gun, and hug her.
Yeah.
Did that make either of you feel anything?
Not really.
It didn't make me necessarily feel anything. Made sense for Sam, but I was just like, Amelie's low-key evil. I was like, let's...
Yeah, like, this is the villain of the game that we're talking about. But I mean, like, yeah, it's just, it is not a cohesive, like, theme. It's not a cohesive narrative. Like, this is a perfect example of, like, characters doing something, like, that is inherently out of character for them.
Oh, you think it's out of character for him to hug Amelie?
I mean, I think he has affection for Amelie, certainly because of the because of how he interacted with her as a young man and everything that's involved with it. And I do think that he recognizes that Sam consciously recognizes that there is a tragic component to who Amelie is and what her function is in this world. But also she's like low-key trying to, end the universe, and he is aware that she tried to manipulate everything and complete her purpose as the sixth extinction. Excuse me. But I just don't see it. Like, I am personally okay that we don't have to end the game with like punch harder, shoot more. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, that's not the resolution to how we get to this point. I just think that like it doesn't seem to be consistent with like who Sam has been up until this moment. For me personally,
that he's not shooting or punching.
Well, like through the end of the game, that like this is the end. Like, obviously this is where we're leading up to the final culmination. This is this is like the apex of like where the emotion is supposed to be in this game. Like, his confrontation with Bridget / Amelie, and where we're gonna. And by the way, I took several screenshots of this moment. With the sun in the background, kind of looking like a supernova. It was really, really beautiful scene. But it's just, this isn't something that like Sam is a conflicted and like broken soul, and he is trying to repair things. But like for me personally, I would have thought he would have been reeling from the level of betrayal, not understanding who Bridget / Amelie is. Like, I don't see Sam immediately accessing this component of emotion or like that empathy for him to go and try and comfort Amelie at the end. That's just not something that I see. That's not a choice I would make in the cutting room.
I think you have to buy in to Sam's character growth for this to make sense. And if you do, this is sort of the climax of his entire character when he does decide to hug Amelie, because we see him in a similar position with Bridget early on in the game. And yeah, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that even though she's family, he didn't really have a good relationship with her, which would lend itself to not wanting to be affectionate. But I think if you do have buy-in to the idea of his character growth being present, then this is like the climax and probably the most impactful moment of the game so far. Whether that works for you, I mean, your mileage may vary, but that's probably what their team was thinking if I had to hazard a guess.
There's that, and there's also just a part of the kind of Ludo narrative dissonance where you can play a Sam who like clears out every mule camp, by punching the hell out of them or beating them down or like knocking them out and doing all that. But I would feel like in general, canon-ish Sam is more like either stealthy and tying people up with the ropes or just avoiding the mule camps in general, especially if you're just doing Golden Path. Like there's a few times where you kind of have to go into the camps and cause any kind of ruckus. The only time he really fights is like the BTs when forced to, or Higgs towards the end. Maybe some of the homo demons when you get to the back half of the game. So I don't know. For me, it's like him getting violent with Amelie, even with the betrayal, isn't in character because I saw the last time Sam had a really big issue happen in his life. He didn't necessarily like fight. He ran. He seems somebody who would recoil and avoid issues and trauma versus try to like dive into it or fight back against it. So this is his character growth by not, running from Amelie or not avoiding the situation, but voluntarily going into the beach. Initially, yes, to potentially stop her with the gun, but ultimately connecting with her in that hug, which is one of the only people up until this point, where he could actually touch, because normally his condition would make him break out into a rash or hives.
Yeah, and Will, I actually kind of would like some clarification on this next part too, because I'm not 100% certain that I have this correct. After this moment, Sam hugs her. Amelie, prior to this, said that, you can either stay here and watch the world end with me, or you're going to have to, shoot me, kill me, to make sure it doesn't happen. You can delay it until the next EE comes about. But after this, Amelie said, all right, I'm going to shut myself in here within my own beach, which will, delay the inevitable extinction. It'll still happen, but it'll be way on down the line. One, do I have that? Am I remembering that right? Did I write it down correctly? Two, why was this hidden as an option? Why is she just now revealing this?
Yeah, she does, seal herself off effectively for, the foreseeable future, to avoid, harming anybody who's in that current timeline. I'm sure it's trying to be like, 100 years from now when people don't exist anymore, or rather the people now don't exist. It'll happen. But yeah, I would say maybe that third one is just her like kind of contingency plan. Ultimately it looks like, especially if you try to shoot and nothing happens and then you wait, which is what she would like to do, right? Wait for the end of the world with somebody that she cares about, just to kind of be done with it, to stop existing in this in-between that she was born into and has been her entire life. But if you show her that compassion, you show that connection that's still there, and she's, for whatever reason, swayed by the fact that this still exists and is potentially a world that's worth keeping for now, that's when she chooses to seal herself off, to accept that hardship of being alone for however many hundreds, potentially thousands of years until it has to happen. Just like how Bridget, as a full person, rejected her extinction entity, kind of not privilege, but her cosmic power, her ability to do so. Her, some would say maybe her I'm trying not to say right, but you know what I mean. It's like it's thrust upon you. So she rejected that, was potentially punished by the universe for it. And Amelie was born. There you go, duty. Yep. So then Amelie is born to right this wrong. And then, like her quote unquote mother before her, rejects this in favor of the people that she cares about.
What's interesting too is like Sam doesn't willingly go along with this choice. He doesn't want this to happen. He even goes so far as trying to shoot himself with the gun, which doesn't work. He can't do that. She gives you the gun and she tells you that it has a role to play, but it's not now. So his attempt at blowing his brains out doesn't work here. The gun, interestingly, the role that it plays is how Sam gets out of here. He doesn't leave willingly. He gets pulled out. He gets yanked out by Deadman. This is the scene that you had mentioned earlier on, Will, that Deadman's finally on the beach. They find you because of that gun. That's how they can sort of lock on. And now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm realizing I don't know how that works.
It's like the Dooms being able to tie on to. It's like everybody had to work together. Fragile with their high level Dooms, Die Hard Man, which I can't wait till we do the official name drop for him. I love it so much. Having that connection to the gun in itself, and then Hardman being the person that could actually go onto the beach because of his distinct separation from any other kind of beach. It allows him into like the seam, like the big beach, to actually get Sam. So everybody has to work together to pull Sam out, and I love it too. I don't recall if they use it in the actual game, but one of my favorite Death Stranding like explained lore videos really puts it very eloquently for me, at least, especially how like the beginning of the game, and it kind of bookends it very nicely, is the gun that Sam has, right, ultimately is a stick as used in those flashbacks with Cliff that becomes a rope in order to tie everyone together to pull Sam back from the brink. So I feel like that just kind of succinctly wraps up that beginning and end of the story pretty well.
Right. I still, this would have been so much more effective to me had the entire game been a little more focused on painting violence as the wrong answer, as opposed to, the shooting segments, the non-lethal rounds kind of just being a sweep under the rug, let you shoot, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But would that have been as successful as a game? I don't think so. I think people would have got a little fed up with that. That's just a Rick thing. But you had mentioned the Hardman thing. I think we should talk about Hardman and Cliff and the impetus behind what brought this game along, because there are some truly good scenes. I know, Nick, you had mentioned that this is just an hour and a half of cutscenes, which, by the way, I thought you were a Yakuza fan. These cutscenes shouldn't bother you at all.
That's different. That's different, Rick.
It's not different.
Dude, Yakuza, you got like 3 hours in a row, man.
It's golden. It's golden. Give me a pizza. You know what I mean?
So Sam gets pulled out, and this is where the ending starts. These last two chapters, or maybe chapter and a half, is just ending before, the final episode 15 or whatever, where it's just endgame, free roam, side missions, build stuff. Hardman is doing like a press conference. He is the de facto new president of the new UCA, United Cities of America. He and everybody's in attendance, including Hartman, who is like laying down, passed out because he's, I guess, having a heart attack at that time, which is really funny to me. Oh, we didn't even mention Hartman's shtick of like giving a thumbs up.
Yeah,
with that leg sound.
Yeah. I love
that.
it.
The first time it happened, I groaned a little bit, but they do it so often and so blatantly that it was cracking me up every time toward the end.
Good.
Because half of the time Hartman just looks at the camera too.
Yep.
And I also love too when he's explaining some high level concept to Sam. Sam will be like, "Oh, so it's like this." And Hartman will be like, "Nope." And then he thumbs down you. It's like you'll get a message saying 20 likes deducted by Hartman.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I like that a lot.
Oh, it's so good. That whole scene ends with him looking at the camera, giving a thumbs up, and then passing out too. It's so good. It's so good. But yeah, he's there. Hardman is giving a speech. Basically a what do you call it? An induction speech. New UCA, new era.
Inauguration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not induction, inauguration. Thank you. He does this thing where he like thanks Sam, but he won't name him. He just keeps saying the name is unimportant. They know who they are. I think he's doing it just to blatantly like talk to the player character, like us playing the game, thanking us. But like, man, what a slap in the face to Sam.
Yeah, can't get a little recognition. My interpretation is that Sam wouldn't want the like public recognition, and so he's trying to respect his privacy / wishes. I don't know. This is my headcanon at this point.
No, totally. I think you're right. But at the same time, like Sam nearly died or actually died several times over. I think at least a brief thank you, Sam, would have been appropriate.
Yeah,
the name is unimportant.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And then in secret, not secret, but private, that's when he's like, that was about you, right?
Well, the private scenes that happen after, you run into Dead Man, who kind of, he tells you about the gun. And I think this is where he hugs you too. And he's like, I've been waiting for this for so long. But before he leaves, he's like, yeah, there are records on the president. He's hiding a lot of stuff. I don't trust him. And you shouldn't either. And immediately that's when Hardman comes in, and you and him, Sam and Hardman, have this last little scene. This is Hardman's confession. Far and away my favorite acting in the game, I think. Like Mads Mikkelsen up until now was like and still is, like, throughout this whole game, impeccable in his role. This scene was so extremely powerful. The way Tommy Earl Jenkins acts this out. I was afraid that Hardman was just going to be a one-note character, just the kind of booming voice, really dignified president of the UCA and the guy that gives orders. But he has a complete breakdown here. You see his entire soul on display here. He is a broken man, and he's explaining all of his sins that he's done, and he just breaks down, just uncontrollable sobbing. And it's extremely effective, I think, anyway.
You know why they call me Die Hardman? Because he wouldn't let me die. He brought my sorry ass back home every time. And I loved him as much as I loved her. And when he stared me down, that ghost, I knew he was here to kill me, to make it right. And why shouldn't he? Why didn't he? He couldn't save his kid, his baby. And that's what brought him back. I guess when he saw I was trying to do my part for America, he remembered who he was. And he forgave me. God! But I don't deserve it, God damn it! There is no atoning for what I've done.
It's just so good. I don't know. I was watching it like twice today and trying to figure out how I could insert it. But I kept thinking like, oh, I can't leave off there. I have to get the next line. I can't leave off there. I have to get the next line. I can't leave off there. It's just, I don't know how I'm going to edit it in, but it is so terrific.
It's really, really good acting there. So like, especially too towards like the end and just hitting it like on those notes heavy, like his crying, like on his knees, looking up to Sam. And I was like, oh, it's so good.
There's a line here too, because Sam kind of rebukes him. He doesn't really accept all of these apologies. There's a line that Sam just kind of throws off. How can you value life if you aren't afraid of death? Or he says some variation of that to Hardman, which is just such a bold thing to say and devote no time to. This just isn't explored, and I wish it was. But this the backstory of Hardman ties directly into Cliff and Bridget and Sam as well. And you get this piece together. You were seeing this through the POV, through the baby, throughout this entire game, just in bits and pieces. But now here at the end, as Sam is taking Lou to the incinerator, because Lou has stopped working, by the way.
Yeah.
When you get there, you connect to try and, one last time to see if maybe you can revive him. You get this full scene of what happened in the past. And the gist of it is this. Hardman was a soldier under the direction of Clifford Unger. Like he was one of his soldiers, squad, I guess. And he has a ton of respect for him, and is part of the reason why he's called Die Hardman, which he tells you, is because Cliff saved him like so many times. He would not let his men die. So there's a lot of respect there. And he comes in to speak to Cliff off the record, saying like, we can't do anything for your wife. Like we can't save her. You need to take your BB and get out of here. What's going to happen if the BB stays in here? You won't get him back. You'll never see him again. Just take him and go. So he gives you a gun and tells you to shoot your wife. I I'm actually a little unclear on that too, Will. Was that just like a mercy killing, or was that a requirement to get the BB out in general?
It's one of those things because the BB being connected to the still mother is like there would always be that connection there. So it's not like he could ever actually escape with Sam in that kind of BB form. Like he would always be never growing, right? He would just be kind of stuck in his way, and then also be prone to that, was it like autotoxemia, or that thing that could happen. So in order to have, a fully fleshed out child that can grow and live and exist in this world, the still mother would unfortunately have to be terminated. That, and he doesn't also want to escape with the baby and leave his poor wife in a vegetative state,
right,
in the government's control. So it's one of those mercy killings.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't, there's not a lot of histrionics here. He's not sobbing, freaking out, uncontrollable, unconsolable. And I think that actually is a perfect acting choice because, I'm not married. So I'm doing a bit of placing myself in his shoes, even though I can't truly know. I can imagine that being faced with such an not unforgivable, such a heavy choice that is such that it can almost never be decided. Like it has to be decided for him, which fate ultimately has. Faced with so much emotion and grief and anguish that it just overrides your system, and you can barely process anything at all. Almost like shock in a way. Just so much terror and fear and sadness that to preserve your literal sanity in life, you cannot process and express it all in that time. Otherwise, you will shut down completely. So the body says, nope, we're not going to do that right now. You will deal with this later as a lifelong trauma. And that is my kindness to you. That is the kindness in this situation. And he does. He shoots his wife, and it's really effective too, because he uses his military training to silence the gun. He puts a pillow between the gun and the wife's head to silence everything. And I'm assuming too to, not make a mess. So there's an element to it that makes it a little bit cold and calculating, which makes it all the more stinging to me. It is such a tragic scene.
Utterly sad, as far as, especially too, this whole time you've been playing, you get to see Cliff drunkenly dancing with BB and talking about how much he loves the wife, and they're going to go dancing and do all this. And, if you've played on your birthday, you get like a nice little birthday message.
Oh, really?
So there's so many beautiful little scenes and poignant times of him trying to keep his family together. Cliff is ultimately with a brain dead wife and a child, stuck in a glass container. He's trying to make things feel as normal as possible. He just talks to BB like everything is normal. And then ultimately having it end like that is just utterly heartbreaking. But like we said, there's necessary, and he treats it like it's necessary.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. And I will say that this is a really good performance put on by Mads Mikkelsen. The issue that I take with it is that I was in and out of safe houses and your like sleep room, and I was going in and out of bases so much that none of what's happening here, none of the reveal of like the events of the timeline of like what happens and the choice that he makes to try and get BB out, like none of it is surprising to me. Like all of this, like I've seen these scenes over and over and over again at different moments to this point when it's like, yeah, okay, this is interesting, kind of seeing it fully fleshed out, but there's no like really huge reveal. Like the fact that he killed, Sam's, mom, of course, makes perfect sense to me at the end of the day. And that, he went through the whole thing, and then that, Die Hardman is coming. Like I felt like it already, even the fact that, with Die Hardman being distrusted by the people being a red herring, I was like, oh, well, this is clearly like, as I'm going through the game, I'm pretty sure that he's like actually perfectly fine. And then like, sure and behold, like he seems to be perfectly fine and like actually looking out for the best interests of Sam. And he was going along with, Clifford, trying to help him out as best as he could. Like it's a good scene. It's a good scene. It's just like, I was kind of hoping for more. But we got what we got, and that's okay.
Well, you do get more. I mean, they didn't show literally everything. They gave you like 70% of it in bits and pieces, but some of those puzzle pieces and links were left out, and the whole ending was left out too. Not to mention it was all, told through a visual and audio muffled filter. So seeing it now just without that, as if it were happening, I thought it was really effective. And it was nice too to see how the scenes pieced together to get the transitions from the first one to the second and then eventually to the end. I don't know. It worked for me.
And it's always a good thing when you, like you said, Nick, going in and out of the safe houses, you actually get the majority, if not all of it. So then when you get to the end, you're rewarded with your completed puzzle versus somebody who maybe just used safe houses when it was necessary. They're missing some pieces to their puzzle. So when they get to the end, now it's filled in. So they get to kind of get that aha moment. But
somebody
you are
doing
just
the golden
like,
path.
Exactly. Yeah. Golden path. They get the aha. Wow. This feels like a twist. You're like, okay, I get the payoff of everything that I've seen up to this point because I was taking my time with the game. And it's like both are right. Both are getting the good ending.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was somebody that didn't use safe houses a ton either. So I didn't see a lot of these. So maybe what I'm perceiving as you didn't get the transitions between certain scenes, maybe you did because you use safe houses more. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I feel like I got pretty much everything besides like the majority of him being in the hallway. But yeah, that's right.
That's interesting too, because he does take BB and he leaves. And guards are both like, it looked like government guards and like that building's security guards, but I'm not entirely sure about that, are chasing him actively. Hardman rigged it up so he had like 5 minutes after getting out of there, but the alarm ends up going off, and so he's being pursued. And like 2 or 3 times, Hardman has to stop other guards from just open firing on Cliff. And that's what makes this so tragic is Hardman is now stuck between doing his duty, his servitude to Bridges and to America, and his unyielding love for his commander, right? Somebody that, from all I've heard, transcends family in some ways. The bond between those who have shared the atrocities of war, that's a love and camaraderie that cannot be comprehended by those who aren't. So Hardman is in this impossible predicament that is probably tearing his psyche in two. So he stops them the first time, and Cliff uses him as like a hostage to get out of there. They corner him, and he's like, "No, wait, we'll handle it." And you can even see the like fully armed SWAT team like giving him the stink eye, like, "What are you trying to do?" He does get clipped. Cliff does. He gets clipped by a bullet. So when they do find him, Hardman, some other guards, and eventually President Strand, he's bloody, sitting there. He knows he's going to die. And there was a previous scene where Hardman kind of crashes out a little bit to Cliff, where he says, like, if she gives me an order, I have to do it. I cannot disobey President Strand. Like, she is my commander, but you were also my commander. It's and he basically extols his love for him. But here in this moment, President Strand is behind Hardman, just screaming, "Shoot him. I gave you an order. Shoot him. Kill him now." And he's doing everything he can to not. He's like, "Please put the baby down, put the gun down. I don't want to do this. Put it down." And the whole time she's screaming in his ear, "Kill him, kill him. I told you to shoot him." It's just such an effective scene. And what's really cool about this too is Sam is here as well, like astral projection, dreamy weemy, timey-wimey. Sam is like watching all of this take place. He can't interact with anybody, but he tries to. He like gets in front of Cliff, putting his hand up like, "Don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot," which is also very sad because, we know now that Cliff is his dad. So he's trying to save the remaining family he has. His mother is dead. His sister never existed. He doesn't have friends. So he's like in a desperate attempt to change the past. He's saying, "No, please don't." And it can never be. It's the tragedy of Sam Bridges. But they have a moment here where Cliff and Sam, like out of time, like misplaced in time, speak to each other, and you get the reveal that Sam here is the son. If you didn't figure it out, that Sam is the BB that we've been seeing.
You told me your name was Sam Porter. But you're Sam Bridges. My my son. My bridge to the future. Without you, I was just like any other Cliff. Dead end. No way forward. Nothing but an obstacle. Looking on at the world people like you were trying to build.
And it's touching because it mirrors almost identically the conversation that Cliff and Sam had in the Vietnam beach, but now there are more lines added to it. It's nice. I like this moment a lot. It's a really touching moment as the world is burning down on the outside, and Cliff eventually does ultimately get shot and killed, as does the BB, as does Sam.
Yep. And you see that on there, how he's ordered, John McClane is ordered to shoot Cliff, hesitates, and then Bridget is the one that actually grabs his hand and pulls the trigger twice. So it's like they both had that hand in not only killing Cliff, but also killing Sam for the first time. At least.
Yeah. Did you say John McClane?
Yeah. You knew that, right? You realize that, right?
Isn't that what is that? Die Hard? Top
From
Gun?
Die Hard, exactly.
Yeah, Die Hard, yeah.
Did they? Jesus Christ!
Oh no! Was this your realization? Oh,
I knew his name was John. I knew his name was John. I didn't know it was John McClane.
Somebody needs to sue Kojima. Honestly,
he can't keep getting away with this.
He has to get away with it. It's why we
stop.
need him.
Stop.
John Blake McClane, aka Die Hard, man. It's so good.
Oh my god, that's so fucking funny. Oh my god. Yeah, you are right though. She does grab his hand and kind of makes him pull the trigger. Just a horrific thing to do too. Imagine living with that guilt. Being the mouthpiece of the gun, effectively being the gun and pulling the trigger against your will. Man, like it's a wonder Hardman has held up at all. And it just makes his confession scene all the more memorable. And it's jarring too to see an infant being shot.
Correct.
Which is exactly what happens here. And it explains how Sam became a repatriate too. And I'm not convinced I fully understand this, but when BB died, when Sam died, he went to the beach, as you do. You die, you go to the beach, and then you go to the land of the dead. Beach is purgatory. He got intercepted by Amelie on the beach, who basically just healed him, brought him back, and sent him back, which is how he became a repatriate. Is that about right?
That is accurate.
Yeah.
So that's why he came back, and Bridget was like, "Oh my God, magic baby! I will now adopt him. He is my son."
Mine.
Yes. And Amelie was like, "Yay! I have a little brother. I'm gonna give him a dream catcher, and then he's gonna give me a kipu, and we're gonna be connected forever."
It's neat. I had been wondering about the repatriates throughout the whole game. Is Sam the only one?
He's the only one, to our knowledge, in the first game.
I feel like there's got to be a second one there, or at least another one in the second game. I have a strong spidey sense about these things.
I would assume that Lou becomes one, probably.
Potentially. We got to do a part 2.
Speaking of Lou, Sam, takes the baby up to incinerate it. And he's replaying what Deadman said in his mind. He's saying that you could try to remove it from the tube, it might come to life, but it's pretty unlikely. And again, this is something that I'm not a parent. I can't ever truly know what this is like. But Sam, takes that chance. He cuts his losses. He takes that chance. He removes Lou from the thingy doodle, and he is trying to wake Lou up. Just imagine, Sam's already lost a baby in the void out. He's going through it again.
Yeah.
He's re-experiencing this horrific trauma once
I
more.
thought that this was the most emotionally impactful, like tragic piece of the game that he went through all of this and he has to lose Lou.
Yeah, this is similar to the Hardman thing where he was pretty stoic and kind of unemotional all the way up until now. And here he just breaks down. He's crying. He's not calling it Lou or BB. He's saying, "Come on, baby. Come on, baby."
Yeah.
It's tragic. Yeah. It's horrific. He's potentially reliving the worst day of his life all over again.
Poor Sam, he cannot catch a break, man. He just had to lose his entire family in like one, couple of weeks. How long would we assume that this game took in like real time? Maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Oh, it's got to be more than that. He traversed the entire United States
yeah,
on foot.
Well, maybe you did it on foot. I had hella highways. So.
Oh yeah, it's because I didn't use the
size of the
zip
United
lines.
States also was like the size of Winston-Salem on a good day with light traffic. So there's that too.
Winston-Salem, what a pull.
Yeah, that's where we live.
Sammy Boy does catch a break though because his gambit pays off. He doesn't relive the worst day of his life. He revives Lou. Lou is revived, wakes up. A miracle finally happened. And that's the last line of the game. The last word of the game is the reveal that this was a daughter, because he says Lou and then he says Louise. And that's it. Credits roll.
And don't forget Lou having the little kipu.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Sweet baby. And then, of course, the timefall, where it's like, hey, look, no one's aging anymore in the rain. So seems like everything that happened with Amelie is causing some real good changes out in the real world. So obviously everything's great and nothing bad will happen. Yeah, at the very end when he steps out into the rain with Lou, is like, the rain and like the rainbow above him, but he's not being rapidly aged while standing in the rain.
Oh, right. I completely forgot about that.
Which is significant. Why? Like, is it because he stopped Amelie? Is that
exactly
what's supposed to change the function of the timefall? Okay.
Well, that makes me curious to how they're going to handle this in part 2. Because, like, don't get me wrong, I much preferred traversing and delivering and building to dealing with BTs, especially like the big BT fights. I didn't mind. They were easy, but I didn't mind them. It's just like when they grab you out of the ground, that sucks so hard. And I would assume if timefall is stopping, it follows that the connection between, or it follows as much as it can in a Kojima game, that the connection between the world of the living and the beaches aren't like merged up anymore. Like things aren't bleeding over, I would assume. So how do BTs play a role then? Have you started the game, Will?
Part 2? No, I haven't started part 2 yet.
I don't think he's bought it.
Yeah, no, I don't have part 2 yet. My plan was to get it after completing our part 1 here, and then probably gonna pick it up in a month or so.
I would be very curious. I can't imagine BTs aren't in the game. They're kind of like the mascot of Death Stranding.
Yeah, so they're definitely still around. It's just different. Same, but still different.
Okay, SK.
They're Australian this time.
They're upside down.
Good. Yeah, nice little ending. I'm glad that Lou woke up for Sam. I don't know, man. Like, I had a good time with this. I do think the last third is a bit of a mess, even though it contains some of the best scenes in the game, I think, and some of the best acting in the game. Just this was such an insane first exposure to Kojima, is the thing. Because I think a lot of folks that played this have the Metal Gear Solid background, but that was when Kojima was under the constraints of a company, under Konami. And this was, at least from what I understand, the first time he got the unfiltered, what I say goes treatment.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rick. I think this is a really interesting way to jump into the work of Hideo Kojima. I really wish that I had done my due diligence and, taken more of an approach of some of our other friends who have, successfully gone back and playing some of the earlier Metal Gear series to kind of get a more grounded foundation of where he came from, his flair for cinema, what he does with his characters like Solid Snake or the boss, all of these interesting, eclectic characters that he makes. So I I agree with you. But at the end of the day, I do think that this is going to stand out in my mind really hard. Like, for all of my complaints, for all of my, critiques, if you will, I will say that, like, I have never played a game like Death Stranding, and I don't think I ever will. And I think it is deeply important for me to kind of like accentuate that, because like I see why people call, Kojima, a master of his craft, in this sense, just because he is able to he's able to cook with so many different components in the pot. Sometimes they work, and then sometimes they didn't work for me personally, but I still think that it's the uniqueness and his ability to really redefine what a AAA experience can be, is different from everyone else out there.
Yep. That's always been Kojima's strength, is, because even with the Metal Gear Solid franchise, which is storied and, ultimately kind of on a pillar when it comes to video games, still not ultimately for everybody. It has maybe too much stealth, it has potentially too much action, definitely has too much goofiness for some people. But the big thing is that you can always look to Kojima's games, and I would say very rarely, if at all, can you say, hey, this didn't try to push something new. This wasn't trying to go out of its way, for better or for worse. Even in that Metal Gear Solid franchise, people would look at something like 4 with the what are they called? The Beast group. There's a bunch of ladies that are named after different animals, and they're kind of like your recurring antagonists throughout the story. And there's just so many different ways to fight them versus straight up fighting, or you can put them in this kind of like a dream sequence where you're taking pictures of them and they're posing for you. Like, it's insane. It's crazy. And it's just very Kojima. And that's something that he brings to each of his games. It's just a new wrinkle, a new way for you to look at a game or a type of genre, or even a new genre, these Strand type games that will never exist outside of the 2 that we currently have, or any potential sequels, and just say, yep, that is very much Kojima. Can't have a whole lot of repetition or kind of retreading when it comes to his work, which is nice.
Well, thank you, fellows, for joining me. I really appreciate it. This was fun to do on the show. Looking forward to 2 coming to PC. That's probably what I will wait for. I'll probably wait for it to come to PC before picking it up. But yeah, that's Death Stranding. Hell of a ride. So thank you for sticking around, to all of you listeners out there. Thanks for sticking around through 3 episodes and to the end of this one. Will and Nick, it's been a minute since we've recorded. Bit of a gap in recording time. What's new over at the Friday Night Gamecast?
Oh, what's new indeed, Rick? Nothing much recently. I think this may still be true based on what we have talked about last time. Most recently, our latest episode is up on the feed. It has been corrected. There was an audio issue for any listeners of the show that are listening to this, and then also, enjoy the Friday Night Gamecast. We had an audio issue with a mix-up for our Coffee Talk episodes 1 and 2 review with Kate and Emily of No Small Games, but that has been resolved. That is the top of our feed, and that's something that you can go through. Rick, last time, you talked about some episodes that we would recommend to people if they're new to the Friday Night Gamecast. And I got to tell you, man, you joined us for the episode right before Coffee Talk for Claire Obscure Expedition 33, and I do think that it's an all-timer. That was a really, really fun episode, and I encourage anybody to go and listen to that. I think that's a great one. But yeah, Will and I are fleshing out a schedule. We have things cooking, behind the scenes of stuff that we want to review as soon as I can get my house settled and I can, kind of get back into routine. We have a lot of plans coming out with what we're going to do for the rest of this year, and lots of exciting stuff happening for this year. But again, yeah, if you want to, find us, just check us out. Friday Night Gamecast on all podcasting platforms.
Anything you want to add, Will? Or did Nick pretty much cover it?
He covered the majority of it. So, yep, outside of the podcasting platforms, make sure to interact with us on the social media site that shall not be named, as well as Blue Sky and Instagram, of course, where we post up some funnies, we post up some goofies, share some good stuff, and, of course, make sure that we keep you all locked into what we're currently doing and potentially have upcoming.
Yeah, and I promise I'm not plugging our Patreon on our friend's show. Of course, subscribe to Rick's Patreon first before you do anything. But I am doing my best, Republican man cosplayer with the hat and the sunglasses in the car. I'm doing like kind of just day in the life recordings, vlogs on our Patreon for just random gamer thoughts, Gooner gamer thoughts on the way to and from work. So if that's your cup of tea, feel free to just check us out, you know what I mean?
I did get that notification, and that was my first thought, was that it's a selfie cell phone camera of Nick in a car with sunglasses, and I was like, man, he's gonna be complaining about the woke, I bet.
Exactly.
Yeah, let me tell you about these goddamn clankers.
Exactly. that one right there.
You can find links to all of the Friday Night Gamecast stuff in the episode description. You'll find all of their social medias and their Patreons by going to, I think it's Linktree. I think you guys have that.
Yes, that's right.
You can find that in the description. You can find links to our stuff as well, to our social media presence on Blue Sky and Instagram, to the Discord that is free, and to the Patreon that is not free. You can check all of that out, support if you're so inclined, leave a rating and a review if you're so inclined as well. And once again, thank you. Appreciate you sticking around for such long episodes. I think that's all for today. So thanks again, Nick. Thanks again, Will. It's been fun. And until next time, next up on the show, we've got Claire Obscure. Got a couple of episodes coming on Claire Obscure, and that's going to be a blast.
Oh, that's a beautiful game right there. Y'all enjoy that.
Oh, yeah. So until then, we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on